So the latest buzz is that Final Fantasy IX is actually going to get a remake, because for the most part, Square Enix is desperate and they're doing everything they can to make a profit nowadays. Because this past year hasn't been too great for them financially, and it's a good thing that Final Fantasy Nine is getting remade, and it's most likely going to get released sometime in 2025. But that's something that could change over time. But as far as Final Fantasy X is concerned, there's been no mention by Square Enix about a Final Fantasy X remake, and this is news that came from a reliable leaker whose identity I'm going to keep secret. But it really doesn't make too much sense to remake Final Fantasy X, especially considering the fact that we got Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X Part Two like remastered about a decade ago in 2013. And I actually had that game for a short period of time, and it was kind of fun. And the thing is, some people think it looked worse, and they felt like it could have been a lot better than what it was. But I think it was whatever. It wasn't intended to be a remake. And if Final Fantasy um, 10 it was something that Square Enix wanted to remake, they probably would have done it a long time ago. I don't see the demands from the online gaming community being like so undeniably high to a point where Square Enix would have to fold and do that. But at the same time, if we don't get a remake for Final Fantasy X, and let's just say we get a remake for Final Fantasy like 13 later down the line, that's going to be BS, because Final Fantasy X was probably one of the best RPGs from the PS2 era, because I think it sold like over like somewhere between 8 and 9 million, like on the PlayStation 2 back in like the mid 2000s. And it was probably the best installment of the entire decade, because Final Fantasy 11 is forgettable because it was mainly an MMORPG, and it's something that hardly anyone talks about. 12 I feel was good and it was underrated. It's a game that doesn't get talked about as much. And Final Fantasy 13 was atrocious because you couldn't play as multiple characters in part one of Final Fantasy 13, and the main character Lightning was just bland and it's boring as ever. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Final Fantasy 10 was probably the best installment of the 2000s decade. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are bummed about the fact that that's something that's not in the cards for Square Enix. But obviously, Square Enix is still in the process of trying to get their priorities straight and deciding, what games are going to remake, what IPs are going to revive, because they have to do everything they possibly can to bring back their lapsed fan base and to appeal to casuals before they suffer another massive financial loss like they did this past year.